everybody, Ninjo X the Enlightened Gamer here. Welcome back to a new episode of
Mine of Ninjo!
And our 7th installment of
Back again and about time too.
where we're gonna dive right in to the very first segment. One thing that I've uncovered in my research of Nintendo titles in general, but especially Rareware titles, is a fondness of water levels. Now, despite all the flack that these levels get for slowing the game down and using unusual gameplay, water levels are usually my favorite levels in a game. Keyword being usually. Because Lord knows there are some water levels that are just messed up. But for the most part, I find while they slow down the gameplay and change it, make it a lot tougher, a lot more stressful, they're usually the most atmospheric, symbolic, and deep, it's a water pun, levels in games. And the Donkey Kong franchise is certainly no exception to this, if not the exception. Ever since Aquatic Abyss all the way to Gloomy Galleon and into Donkey Kong Country Returns 2, water levels have always been the most atmospheric, with only levels like the Sticker Brush worlds in Donkey Kong Country 2 coming even close. Speaking of water levels, where we left off last time, we had just reopened the path to Gloomy Galleon, the token water world of Donkey Kong 64. A level vastly inspired by Donkey Kong Country 2's pirate themes. Or is it? In addition to K. Rool in the first games, there's another prominent pirate figurehead lost within the lore of Dream. He makes a brief appearance in Banjo-Tooie in Jolly Roger's Lagoon, the token water level of Banjo-Tooie. But all he really says is something along the lines of, I had a dream once. This here bird came in and ruined my dream. That was very cryptic until a little more was revealed to us about Dream. Blackeye was the main antagonist of Dream. What do you mean by that? I thought it was the giant that was the final boss. The giant was the final boss, I believe. But the giant wasn't an antagonist. He wasn't an intentional villain. He was just a force. A massive, dangerous force that had to be dealt with. Not necessarily evil, just dangerous. Where Blackeye and his scurvy pirate crew ruled the high seas in the times of Dream. With the addition of a few other pirate characters showing up, like Blubber in Treasure Trove Cove, one of multiple water levels in Banjo-Kazooie, it makes you wonder if Gloomy Galleon was always so gloomy. Because you can see there's a song from Project Dream Files. I have a ton of these. Called Blackeye. Take a listen to it. That's right. It's a slightly different, more upbeat version of the Gloomy Galleon theme. This leads leads me to believe that Gloomy Galleon itself is symbolic of the death of Blackeye's role in Banjo-Kazooie, in Dream. Once the star of the show, his and K. Rool's combined collective fleets left to rot. This would explain the human skeletons in some of the underwater bonus areas in Gloomy Galleon, when you'd think they would all be crocodile skeletons. It's because they weren't all crocs. Some of the ships in Gloomy Galleon's lurch belonged to Captain Blackeye. But, all that said, let's get on to our feature presentation. Last time, the Kongs cleared away the Gorilla Grease Gulf and rescued Dixie. Now Diddy, Dixie, and Funky can travel into the newly waterborne, the buoyant again, Mechanicroc Isle. A large section of the island fell away when it returned to its floating position. And if you're brave enough to swim around down there, you can find an entrance to what was once Gloomy Galleon. Let's say you grab Dixie and do it. Let's say Diddy. Say you grab Diddy because of his speed and you swim down there and you eventually find the entrance to Gloomy Galleon. Or at least what used to be Gloomy Galleon. As soon as you enter the archway, the lobby, everything is very dark. Not sinister, not macabre, but dark. Physically dark. An absence of light is present throughout. With very few exceptions. It's because this is Gloomy Galleon no more. The ship's rotting beneath the surf. The general lack of upkeep of the bay. The wood and masts of the ships in this underwater have decomposed. The fires of attempted industry have blotted out the skies. This is now identically named to a level in Donkey Kong Country 3, I'm aware, but it's the best name I could think of. The Aquatic Abyss. But you can't even quite find your way to the level yet. Entering the lobby, you see a couple of glowing lamps as the only source of light. The level arch is deactivated and Funky cannot use his plug to turn it on again, as there's no available power source. So the only thing to do is to goof around until eventually you come up with the idea of breaking open the lamps, which is as easily done as touching them. When you break one open, a banana fairy escapes from the glass prison. Kept prisoner, much in the way Tink was by Captain Hook. The banana fairy informs you that the Kremlings, desperate without power, captured all of its sisters, all of its people, and that without your help they'll be imprisoned forever. After freeing all of the banana fairies, they instruct you to return to Banana Fairy Isle, which is just off the coast of DK's old isle. Much like Tiny in the previous game, only Dixie can enter the isle. And doing so allows you to meet with the Banana Fairy Queen, who promises to open the way to the next world if you can save 5 more of her children. The 6 lamps, 2 for each world, appear in the worlds you've already visited. And returning to those worlds and freeing them, they aren't too hard to find, at least not in the first 3 worlds. Will give you access to the Banana Fairy Glow. What is this, you might ask? Well, basically the Banana Fairy Glow, similar to the Shockwave maneuver from the first game, allows you to do a charge that this time creates a glowing field of light around the Kong using it. Using the glow as Funky, which does cost a small amount of crystal coconuts to use, will allow you to locate the plug so that he can open the doorway to Aquatic Abyss. Which brings us to the actual level. Ninjo, you've done a lot of things with the previous worlds to try and add a little bit of intrigue, especially when we did Fallaway Factory, changing it up so much from the original VK64. Are you going to do that again? That's right, I am. You see, one thing that's been missing from the DK franchise ever since Donkey Kong Country 3, which was always a staple of the industry, are the numerous animal buddies. Donkey Kong Country 1 had Winky, Ungar, Espresso, Rambi, Squawks, Rambi and Squawks. Donkey Kong Country 2 had Squitter and Ungard and Rambi and Rattly. Squawks and his lesser-known friend, Quawks, as well as an enemy animal buddy, Screech. Donkey Kong Country 3 substituted Rambi for Ellie and reintroduced many of the other animal buddies, while also adding a couple. Then Donkey Kong 64 came out, and we lost every single animal buddy besides Rambi and Ungard. I don't know about you, but that never set too well with me. Much like Yoshi and Mario World, the animal buddies gave a dimension of depth and gameplay to the Donkey Kong franchise that it simply wouldn't have had otherwise. They were more than just a look forward to power-up. They were friends, buddies for lack of a word. You got attached to them because they were all so unique. So Aquatic Abyss will be the level to reintroduce a mega animal buddy world. The Aquatic Abyss, the Aerial Abyss, and the land in between will host all 6 animal transformations for this game. But most importantly, getting into the Aerial Abyss will be the animal transformations of Dixie and Funky. Dixie will become Espresso, the ostrich from the original Donkey Kong Country games. And Funky will become the lesser-known buddy or brother of Squawks, appropriately or not so appropriately named Quawks. That's right, it's the same name, but just with no S. In fact, this entire world is split up into 3 sections. The massive Aquatic Abyss, which can only be explored through the help of Glimmer, an animal buddy from Donkey Kong Country 2 whose main purpose was lighting the way, because you cannot use the banana glow underwater. The massive aerial abyss, which can be explored by Dixie, Funky, Diddy, as well as Lanky and Donkey. And the strip of land in between the two. Which brings me to another, at least I think it's interesting, point of this particular level. The big gear for fighting the boss of Aquatic Abyss is split in half. Each half is held by a different boss. In the aerial abyss, a gear is being held by none other than former animal buddy, now Maverick Rebel, Squawks the Parrot. In order to best your avian adversary, all you must do is assume the alternating forms of Espresso and Quawks as Dixie and Funky, and race it through a bramble patch. The other boss hidden in this level is Bornicle, a burrowing, barnacle, whose concept is based off of the digging moles from Donkey Kong Country Returns and Barbos, a boss from Donkey Kong Country 3. That's actually the only underwater boss of the franchise, unless I'm mistaken. Of the two, Bornicle is far more dangerous. But Squawks is far more difficult to beat. Only Bornicle is concealed behind a Clomping Crush door. Squawks is hidden in the sky, and reaching him won't be so simple. Once you have both pieces of the golden gear and have collected several other gears from Aquatic Abyss, or gone back to previous levels with Dixie and collected gears, at long last, you'll be able to return to the Mechanic Rock. And in Reptile Refuge, if you place the gears, the fan will activate once more. This time, not opening one, but two of the Isle's levels. Similar to how the second key to K. Lumsey's Cage opened up Gloomy Galleon and Frantic Factory in the original. These two levels, formerly Crystal Caves and Jungle Japes. We'll explore those levels next time. But for now, it's time for... Alright. Spoiler alert. For the exceptions and distinctions section, I want to discuss the other animal buddies, all of which will be playable in Aquatic Abyss, and many of which will be playable in the previous two levels as well. The entire list of animal transformations includes Donkey Kong's transformation into Rambi, Diddy's already revealed transformation into Squitter, Dixie's already revealed transformation into Espresso, Lanky's transformation into Ungard the Swordfish, Chunky's transformation into Ellie the Elephant in her second appearance in a main series game, and Funky's transformation into Quawks. And I could end it there, but instead I want to talk about the Banana Fairies really quick. One thing I've started to discover about Dream at the time that they were Rare at the time they were making Dream and Conker's 12 Tales is that they loved myths. They loved nursery rhymes. They loved what eventually became Disney movies, to be frank. The legends and storybooks of old. Conker's Bad Fur Day, while raunchy and disgusting, pays homage to many classic films. I think Dream was meant to pay tribute to many classic fairy tales. Jack and the Beanstalk, with the consideration of the giant and the beanstalk in Fungi Forest. Alice in Wonderland, with the inclusion of mushrooms and witches. Wizard of Oz probably was included later for actual Banjo-Kazooie, but it was probably an idea even back then. And of course, everybody's favorite play, Peter Pan. Hashtag sarcasm. This would explain the inclusion of pirates and also the almost forced inclusion of Captain Blackeye. As well as the two themes for what would eventually become Mayhem Temple, Angry Aztec, and DK Isles being titled Lost in reference to the Lost Boys. The main character Edmund looking like Peter Pan. And the presence of banana fairies. Do you remember earlier when I said they looked like Tinkerbell? That wasn't by accident. Small, elusive sprites that once captured bestow the user with magical abilities. Banana fairies are a direct reference to Tinkerbell. Or at least they were back when they were part of Dream. Though they may not have been banana fairies then, and they simply may have been fairies. Well, anyways, this has gone on for quite some time. This is probably going to be my longest Mind of Ninjo so far. So, I'm going to leave you guys on that note. Until next time, stay a brain and stay enlightened.